Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the House of League podcast. Thanks for being with us again, whether you're watching us on our new YouTube channel, as a lot of you are, or whether you're just listening as normal, wherever you get your podcast from. We're back. We genuinely tried to change up the guest list this week. Well, me and Matt tried, and we couldn't. So we're stuck with him for another week. But first off, Matt Shaw, our All Out Rugby League editor, is with us. TV celebrity. You were on Sky Sports on Thursday night. I think you did every pretty much local radio station since.
I've been a man in demand this week.
Should have seen him. He had his own runner at Wigan, and he was requesting things and his own room.
It's not particularly true. That's not exactly true. I did get someone to bring me a pie, but only because I didn't want to look like it was my second pie and I didn't want to go myself. So I thought if they got one for me, I could have two pies without people thinking. I
wanted to say you should have got somebody to come and change the camera angle, but I'm aware of the words pot, kettle and black and myself. They
did do me dirty.
Did you do you dirty a little with that camera angle?
Like literally on the floor. And I'm like, my mum like keeps a track of everything I do. First thing when I saw her, you looked terrible. Like, thanks, mum. That's kind of you. He goes, gone.
It doesn't help as well when you've got Jenna and she's there with, she's got her makeup done and she's looking glamorous and ready for TV, and then she cuts to you and Steve Mascard. I mean, no disrespect to Steve either, but
I'm sure Steve will be thrilled.
Yeah, I'm sure Steve will be thrilled. No disrespect to Steve. Steve looks a lot better than you did, though, let's put it that way.
Thanks.
So you're with us, and Josh is with us again. Josh has got big news, everybody.
Yeah, we could not believe it.
Listen for this
he's got
one.
really big news. Hit all the listeners / viewers with your news, Josh.
Groundbreaking chicken balti pie.
He had a chicken balti pie and his nose was still running this morning. Was it not?
I had a bit of water, obviously, on hand next to it. And you know when Rugby League's back, because it's pie for tea on Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
Literally, I had meat and potato pie, two meat and potato pies at Wigan. It was chicken pie at Hull KR. It was pie and peas and gravy at Headingley. And it was chicken balti pie at Huddersfield.
Right.
Unbelievable.
I was thinking we should do our own segment, separately rating pies at every ground and the food at every ground. But
yeah, Matt's discussed that already. I think anything food related, he's more than up for that. Let's get to the big, and we will get to the even bigger news, but start with the big news. Which was the best of them pies?
The second Wigan one.
The second
because
Wigan
it felt naughty. It felt naughty.
And you had someone go collect it for you.
It was just so much more satisfying.
It's even nicer when you don't have to go walk and get it. It's like when you go out for tea, you'd have to do the pots.
Exactly.
It's always nicer.
It was the best pie anyway, the Wigan ones, which you'd probably expect. I'm not a massive chicken pie fan, so KR was at the bottom. But I need to say this because I hammered Hull KR all last year for not bringing anything other than ham sandwiches to the press. So they brought pies, so I don't want them to think I'm picking on them. Leeds was a pain because they gave it in, like a hot dog tray.
Yes.
So then when you had your peas and your gravy, it got soggy and it was ready to just rip up the bottom of the thing.
It's enough to ruin the opening weekend.
So I had to basically get rid of half of it because there was nowhere to sit. And then Huddersfield were all right, but I like chicken balti pie. So
bloody hell, Matt, we've got to start this podcast eventually.
We have started it. We can end it now. We're done.
Honestly, dude, it could get worse for you because are you going to Hull FC? You were at the MKM this week?
I am not. I am at where am I this week? I'm at Warrington. I'm at the Luke Littler Stadium for Warrington Catalan.
Yes.
And I'm at Salford v Leeds, which I don't know if I should have told people because there might be some Salford fans who now come and have a word with me that I'm promoting the fact that
I was just going to say...
if I'm allowed in the ground.
Fortunate that you're not at the MKM. Now, we've got a new owner, obviously, in at Hull FC this year, Richie Marlowe, in that new position as CEO. Have they changed the pre-match routine? Because pulling back the curtain a little bit here, if you're lucky, you get pea soup at Hull FC. If you're lucky, some nights there's nothing. You might stretch to a cup of water.
And do you know what infuriates me the most about that? Hull City, I am reliably informed, get the
it's the
street
best.
food.
Hull
that's
City
good, yeah.
is
Yeah.
one of the best pre-match meals anywhere in the country. Like, hands down, at Premier League or whatever, it's sensational.
I think KR was soup when I went last year.
There was a soup last year.
long journey for soup.
I have no idea what it was.
But anyway, Super League was back this week. I'm sure
Super League.
Nobody's bothered.
I'm sure you all watched it. There was some terrific games right across the board. Nearly, we can't say 6 out of 6 terrific games, but I think 5 out of 6 were very good, and the standard in some of them was superb. Unfortunately, we're going to probably need to start with the one where the standard wasn't superb for no fault of the players on either side, and that was the St Helens against Salford game on Saturday, which turned into a record 82-0 victory for the Saints against, effectively, Salford kids reserve side. Really disappointing, Matt, for many reasons, in particular having seen 2 golden points on Thursday and then Friday, and then we get served up that on the BBC, on the biggest, showcase of all, if you will, on free-to-air TV, and that's what we get served up. Really disappointing this weekend.
Yeah, avoidable, unnecessary, in a manner of, a completely different number of ways. Rugby League has this knack, doesn't it, of even when everything is brilliant, of providing something that's a shambles and delivered true to form again this year. It's just annoying because, like I said, it could have been prevented. It could have been prevented by things being done before the week started. It could have been prevented during the week. It could have been prevented even after the reality came about. And it was just a terrible look. I don't think anyone as involved in this whatsoever takes any credit. And the people I feel sorry for in all of this are the fans, who have, and not just the Salford fans, the Saints fans who've paid 27 quid a ticket, I think I saw it was, expecting to see a really good game of rugby league, really excited for the start of the season, and get that, a non-event. And more than them, I feel sorry for the Salford players who have gone through a pre-season, and we all know how grim they are. They've geared themselves up for the start of the year. They've had all of that noise going on and all the talk that's been going on.
Concerns over whether they're going to get paid.
100%. They have always been paid for the record. But, so they've gone through all of that, get to the start of the season, and by and large, they were told they won't be playing. I feel for them because it's not only that, it impacts their ability to achieve what they want to achieve by the end of the season as well.
While some of them played in that Challenge Cup game, a lot of them didn't. So effectively, we're 2 games into the season, and some of them star names have not played now.
No,
they've got no minutes in the legs, no action into the body.
They've played a pre-season game against Saints. Now, by and large, Salford played a strong team in that, and they kept them on for quite a while, where Saints didn't as much. But nevertheless, they've still not played for 3 weeks now. They should, we'll get onto it, they should be able to play this week. But they're not going to be battle-hardened.
No.
They're going to take on a Leeds team that have had a disappointing loss, but a tough game under the belts. It gives them a head start on that front as well.
Josh, you did the game for us at the weekend, and Matt makes really good points about the fans. It's always the fans and supporters of clubs that in any of these situations are the ones that have to pay and suffer because of it. And yes, the players as well. But it doesn't help the integrity of the competition. Now, we all sat here last week and you talked about, I think, Josh, you had Saints missing out on the playoffs. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I had them 7th.
Seventh. And you said, they've always made the playoffs. I can't see them not missing out, but 6th. But my point being, you both had them in and around the playoffs. If they squeeze into the playoffs on a points difference of having 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 points difference better than somebody else in and around that, whoever that may be, then they're going to feel even more aggrieved that, hang on, that complete blowout at the start of the season is the reason we're out the playoffs now. it's all if, buts and maybes. But my point being, it doesn't help with the integrity of the competition.
No, it doesn't. And in our sport, there's every chance that will happen. Come round 27, there's going to be something around those 82 points they scored, the widest margin. I also want to say on the flip side of that, making your Super League debut is special. It's something that should be celebrated. There were 7 lads there for Salford that had a special day, but it's kind of just been overlooked, hasn't it? Because they've just been chucked out there, and that's that. And they've been battered, haven't they? 82-0, say the widest margin. So that's just a special moment for them. Hopefully they've celebrated with their families and internally. But making your Super League debut should be something a bit more special. But yeah, it was a Super League own goal, wasn't it? We started on Thursday, which we'll come to with records broken, the biggest crowd, and we get our first chance on BBC, and that happens, and it's not a good look for the sport. There was lots of talk about it, and again, we're talking about the off-field drama, and then there's the question marks over who he could have played. Paul Rowley came into the presser, and it's above him, so he didn't want to take all the questions. What he said to us was please just ask me on the game. He's talked to a BBC about it, but we had to ask. Obviously, it was the talking point. He had the thought there. The choices are he did have the opportunity, didn't he, to name some of those players, but he said he didn't want to name. Some of them were injured. He didn't want to name half and half. Introduce them on the bus. And then they go out and play together. Now there's some questions over that.
Well, here's a question, Josh. If the restrictions were lifted, would half of those players who he claims were injured, would they have not played?
Well,
they'd have played.
Yeah, that was the thoughts. Yeah, the thoughts was, you probably, because you could have a lot of injuries there. If he plays that same 17, 1 or 2 might have been injured. That's still 15 players he could have played.
And all indications are hopefully it gets resolved ahead of this week. Then players will play. Week.
100%. I'm not saying that 1 or 2 of them are injured. I don't believe saying 6 players are injured. Well, technically, he's probably right because everyone gets a knock on a day-to-day rugby league. I think trying to make out that was why wasn't the right thing to do. Now, listen, we can have a debate about whether Paul Rowley did the right thing or not, and I'm sure that was probably the next question. I have a few thoughts on this.
You're assuming too much, but yeah, let's pretend that.
I did think you were.
No, you.
I was wrong to presume you were competent.
Yeah,
but
you're
anyway,
doing me kind. So yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah. There's a few. You can make a few arguments here, right? He could have played the team he played last week.
Yeah.
Now, I think there was 9 players that weren't named in the 21-man squad against Midlands, who were first-team players. I'm aware of at least 4 of them that are injured. So it's probably 5 players down. Now, admittedly, Mark Sneed, Callum Watkins, Tim Lafay, I think were 3 of them. Chris Hill was another. So you've got some fairly big players there. So they would have been without them. Yeah, okay. So you could argue, tactically, he was doing the best thing for his club. Were they able to win the game with the squad they had out? Subjective, I would argue no. With the match limits that are in place now this year, every player can only play a certain number of minutes. Paul Rowley could have thought, tactically, we aren't going to win this game. I am not going to play any of my players, and then we can save them for later dates. Help us, but we have to accept we're not winning this game. You could then argue, and this will get thrown at him anyway, you didn't field your strongest team. In the rules, it says you have to do. They won't come down on them for that. Challenge Cup playoffs, they never come down on them. So they weren't going to come down on them.
We see it every year. We see it. Back end of the season, this season, we'll see it again.
Yeah,
100%
we will.
Salford did it back in last season against Wigan, didn't they? Because they had the playoffs.
People say that they should be deducted points for nonsense. Like, for me, you should be entitled to play the team you want. I know it brings integrity issues, but in this instance, with match limits, I think you have a great reason to not do it there. I suppose that what probably winds people up is that it seems cynical and a bit of the proverbial 2 fingers up.
Yeah.
Now, we will never know whether that was Paul Rowley's intention or not. He would never admit that it was.
No. You can see the perception of that.
Absolutely.
John Wilkin summed it up perfectly when he said Teddy's been thrown out the pram. It looks like that.
Yeah. The one thing I will say in defence of Paul Rowley, we talk about the players and the supporters. He's collateral damage in this as well. He can't help this situation.
No. And it's his last season. He's going to want to finish his eye on the table. He didn't want to throw away 2 points.
100%.
He would have wanted his strongest side out.
So, and he's got to do, my opinion is, he has to do what is the best thing for his club. Subjectively, was that the best thing for the club? I don't think it was optically the best thing for the club. Was it the best thing for the team? Could be. If they beat Leeds, let's say
that's a strong argument.
If the restrictions are lifted and they go beat Leeds,
Yeah.
they've obviously got no injuries off the back of the game, he will be able to argue, I was justified in my selection.
And that is a strong argument, because if he'd have put the same side out that played in the Cup, for example, and under that 1.2 million cap, the likelihood is, not guaranteed likelihood is, they lose the game anyway.
Yes.
This way, they're stronger and better prepared for Leeds. Is that the best thing for Salford's 2025 season? Not opening round, looking at the bigger picture.
That's my point.
Which, as a head coach, you've got to look at.
100%.
So you're making a good argument there.
Yeah.
I mean, fact, you're defending Paul Rowley. I mean, on this podcast.
I just,
That's
listen,
a shame.
I'm not necessarily saying
No, I know
I
what you're
agree
saying,
with, but I can see playing devil's advocate a bit and seeing it from his point of view.
I think it makes sense. I think you've made a really good argument. Josh?
I have two things just to add on that. The argument after was that no one at the club knew that the 1.2 had to be the same.
Right. I just want to jump in on this. Sorry. I'm jumping in and I shouldn't do. If they honestly thought that, right, and let's take it at face value. Let's say that they genuinely thought they could pick a different 1.2 every week. That was foolish.
Let's just explain. A lot of people probably don't, well, I don't want to do them discredit, but probably don't understand themselves. So you've got the salary cap in place at the minute for Salford. That's 1.2 million. That isn't a week by week. That's a season cap. You explain it.
We know the salary cap
in detail.
When you have a salary cap, you've got 2.1 million plus all your dispensations. Once a player is selected
And
for a
players.
competitive game and plays, they go on your salary cap.
Yes.
What you can't do is have £8 million worth of players and pick a team that's only to the tune of 2.1 every week. That's not how the salary cap works.
No, it's not like fantasy football or fantasy rugby where you can swap people in and out.
Exactly
and
that.
Don't bust your bank.
The sustainability cap is essentially exactly the same, just they're told they can't go above 1.2. It's just their own self-purposed salary cap.
Yes.
Now, why Salford would think that they can change it week to week, I have no idea.
When they can't with the normal salary cap.
No.
So
I don't believe for a minute that they thought that. I'll be honest. I don't. And if they did, let's take it on face value. Foolish to think that. I knew they couldn't because I asked the question last week when they named the 21-man squad to play Midlands. Are you telling me no one at that club thought to ask that question themselves?
Yeah.
Not a chance. Not a chance. The other thing on the sustainability cap is it's all right. Even if you thought that, why would you still not then put a 1.2 team out? Which comes back to what we're arguing about. Was it the right thing for the team? I just can't buy into that at all.
You were saying before.
Well, that was Matt just.
It's
That
just
was,
totally
I was
fun,
I was
Sorry.
going down there. Matt got.
But in your defence, Josh, you've had a little story about a Balti pie, so you're winning
is that
already.
mine?
Your contributions are already greater
I
than
can
the
just
last
say
two
it now, can I? The only other thing I was going to say on the flip side of that is a lot of the chants from Salford on Saturday were aimed at the RFL. Now, the takeover was announced last Friday. The RFL have to do the due diligence. They have to check everything because if it comes out in 6 months' time that the takeover, that the finances aren't there, and the RFL didn't do these checks, let's hope that doesn't happen. It won't happen.
The RFL's got a duty to the competition and the game,
and they've been given 8 days to do that. You can imagine that's more than an 8 days task. So I don't think the RFL are to be fully blamed either at this. I think the Salford were chanting against that.
Everyone is culpable. Salford knew the conditions. When they went into special measures, they agreed to the conditions. They knew what they had to do, and they didn't do it. That's that. I just don't see how they can complain about that. Now, the RFL aren't void of criticism for me. The RFL have let this rumble on and rumble on and rumble on. They gave them the 500 grand, which I thought was the right thing to do. Some clubs didn't. I thought it absolutely was. But when they got put under the sustainability cap, which was about December 10th, from then for 6 weeks, nothing happened. They did nothing. The RFL, not Salford, the RFL did nothing. Well, what was the point of going through that process of putting them under a sustainability cap if you're not going to enforce it? Now, the argument the RFL will make is this. If this takeover goes through, they haven't had to sell players, we've kept them competitive, and it's worked, and we've held our nerve, and we've done the right thing. However, by doing this, they have this shambles at the weekend.
It almost feels like if it works, or it's worked despite the way they've worked, rather than because of the way they've worked.
We have a governing body that fundamentally doesn't want to govern, and it's proven time and time again. They wanted the clubs to vote on whether to give them the 500 grand. Why are the clubs voting on that?
Yeah.
Then they wanted the clubs to come up with ideas for dispensations on the salary cap. Why would you ask the clubs? That's your job.
Yes.
That is your job to make these decisions.
And with a lot of them, when you're asking the clubs, it's like asking turkeys to vote for Christmas.
We all moan that the clubs have too much power and influence. If you are going to give them the ability to make these decisions, of course they're going to do what's right for them. Why would you not? It's sport. It's competitive. You can't blame the clubs for that. The governing body just has to. And look, we're going to go into this. Maybe this is a good segue.
Well, let's go into it now. So we said we were driving over to Manchester to record last week's podcast. Here at I think we should start christening the icebox. Yes, that is us shivering. It's that cold in here. At least you can't see the breath on coming out of our mouths yet, but we'll see. We said coming over, me and you were just chatting. As I was once again doing all the driving, and you're like,
I did offer
Miss Daisy in the back. I feel like I'm chauffeuring you everywhere. Now you're a celebrity. Just get your name on the side of your car.
I should get sponsored.
Yeah, you should get you sponsored. No, listen, we were joking as we were driving over and said, opening week of the season, there'll be some big drama at the RFL, Salford aside. There'll be some other internal politics. There always is. Every year you can set your watch by it. Lo and behold, the news comes out. The clubs want the chairman out. There's talk about bringing Nigel Wood back in. I mean, we're talking about a figure that left. I mean, I remember at the time, was it £300,000?
It was in that region. Yeah.
Something in that ballpark. Massive payout. Lots of uproar over the way he left things, but talking about bringing Nigel Wood back in. I mean, the full thing again, just the governance of the RFL, the power struggle seemingly between the clubs and the RFL, who controls what, who wants to take responsibility for what. It's a mess again, isn't it? It feels a mess.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I should probably start this by saying this is a theory rather than what I know to be true. But part of the reason we're in this position now is the clubs are really annoyed with how the Salford situation's being dealt with. They don't think that the RFL have shown leadership. Can't really argue with that, to be honest.
Can we just caveat that? We're not talking last few weeks. We can go back over a year, 18 months from the initial issues that the club had.
And then the other issue is the Robert Hicks thing. Robert Hicks is head of legal and operation at the RFL. He's very well respected by the clubs because they think that he is a person within the governing body who is very good at the job and gets stuff done. This is my personal opinion. I don't think this Salford situation would have played out as it did if Rob Hicks was in. Not a chance.
And he was on this very podcast around a year ago. Yeah. I think you did a special with him, which was really well received. Yeah. He spoke really well. I recommend people. I know the time frame shifted and the conversations moved on. It's definitely worth looking back and checking out that podcast if you haven't heard it. Very insightful from him.
I do know, really. Simon Johnson proposed, as we saw, because we obtained the letter. Chairman of the RFL. We obtained the letter that showed that his resolution was to step down in December. Part of the reason the clubs want him gone now is because Rob Hicks, they want to stay. Rob Hicks will not stay under suspension. He's still under suspension. If you remember, he got suspended at the end of September. So we're talking, 5 months now? Which is just ridiculous. But the clubs are trying to push Simon Johnson out now because they get the feeling that they don't want Rob Hicks back. The clubs want Rob Hicks back.
They get the feeling that the RFL don't want Rob Hicks
back.
back.
The people in the positions of power is the feeling.
Decisions.
If Simon Johnson goes now, that will make it a lot easier to bring Rob Hicks back.
Right.
Is part of the feeling. That's not all of it, but that's part of it, right? So then you go on to Nigel Wood. Now this, I mean, it's crazy to think that we're having this conversation. I mean, it's a damning indictment on some of the people who were making these proposals, because they were the ones who kicked him out, who wanted him gone, and now they want him back.
Yep.
So, it shows how horrendously bad the decision was with the Robert Elston and the executive and splitting. It's just, they're already sort of coming back together. So it just adds to that. So, but why do they want him back? And this is the interesting bit. Now, I can't get a proper answer off people. I have my own theory. I think it is a bit of a subtle power grab from the clubs, because Nigel Wood, of course, now is the chairman of the Bradford Bulls.
Yeah.
Who is now very much in clubland, understands clubs, gets on. He is quite popular within the clubs now. I think he's maybe got a slightly different perspective on things, knows where they stand, and it's a way of putting someone in who they know share their current beliefs and values, and you can get him in, and essentially you've got someone who you know is on board with your ideas. Is my theory.
Yes.
That is a theory. Crazy story. Whether it goes through or not, because there's a lot of people who, as you would expect, very, very strongly against it.
In terms of it, Josh, it just feels like the Rugby Football League and the Super League clubs, owners, chairman involved in that, continuously at loggerheads over how to run, what's best for the sport and how to run things, which you get all the time. You get it in other sports. You get it in football at the minute. There's lots of arguments over the governance of the Premier League, for example. But that is why you need strong leadership at the top. I think Matt's right in one thing is, especially you look at the Salford situation, there hasn't been any leadership. It doesn't feel outwardly, we've not seen it. Where is the leadership from the governing body? It's not been there, has it?
Yeah, no. And I think, was it Derek Bowman that spoke on BBC Radio Manchester? Simon Johnson's not full-time. So that was one of his biggest issues, is a role as big as this that needs that leadership needs to be full-time.
Yeah.
Is that how you would see it as well? You need a full-time person to be in this powerful position, be the almost face of RFL, and make sure you're making those big decisions. It's not a part-time job being.
I think that was maybe a bit of a diplomatic answer, if I'm honest. I don't think that's the reason they want Simon Johnson gone, but I think was maybe the polite way of, they don't want him because they don't think he's a strong enough leader.
No.
Which is what you're.
Now, whether
you're
I know what you're saying. Is Derek, if he was full time, possibly, but I've said it. We've got a governing body that don't want to govern, and that comes from the top. Let's
move on and let's talk about, as I said at the beginning, it's a fantastic opening round of the season. The Salford St Helens game aside, started on Thursday night. Michael Buffer, he said the words.
He said it.
I'm not going to say the words because
$1 million.
Yeah, we haven't got the money to spend. He said the words. We were all wondering. You got Buffer in town. Just a tremendous game as well for hopefully the viewing figures and everybody that involved. I know it was a 0-0 and sometimes people say, one for the purists or whatever. The intensity on show for a round one game it had the feel of a playoff game. And I'm not going to come out and say grand final, everyone thinks I'm mad, but it had that end of season intensity to it. It was terrific. I'll come to you first. Josh, you were there. What was there was nothing not to love about, and we even got the upset as well with Leigh winning. Obviously, if you're a Wigan fan, you don't love that, but I think for everybody else, just capped a brilliant night.
Yeah, we won't talk about Salford so much, but that's almost a Super League goal. But Thursday started off with a bang, didn't it? You say Michael Buffer. You had the chapel outside that had loads of people going in and looking, and all the memorabilia inside. And I think you posted the video, didn't you? That was brilliant. You had the screens outside, obviously advertising Las Vegas because Sky Sports are back in Las Vegas. Then inside, you had the Lathams performing 3 or 4 songs. Then you had Michael Buffer, you had the fireworks, and then we had a game that sort of lived up to that hype. The defence, that's what was stood out. I know there's talk about it, but both Adrian Lamb and Matt Pete said after, I hope that game gets what it deserves. And that's what we tried to push in All Out Rugby League, is that it was a great game, as you say. It was that playoff intensity. It wasn't that, you know, the attack will improve across the year, but teams were throwing stuff at each other. It's just that the defence was up there, and then you get Gareth O'Brien, the drop goal king. I think if your life depended on it, and you had to pick a player in Super League to drop to kick a drop goal, you'd pick him, wouldn't you?
Him or Mark Sneed, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Well, he's broken a few hearts down the years, and he as Gaz O'Brien. Josh summed it up perfectly there, Matt. It was everything that we wanted and more from an opening game of the season.
Well, it depends who you ask, doesn't it? Because I couldn't believe the negativity that was coming out of some about the game and
That's
saying
just
it was
our sport,
boring and dull. I'm like, what are you watching? Seems like people would prefer a 42-40 where it's just knock on a phone and breaks everywhere. Like,
we do want to see acrobatic finishes.
Course,
We do want to see
course.
great tries, but you can't always have that.
And that isn't the be all and end all.
No, that's rugby league's much more than that.
Great. It was just a fantastic match. It was a fantastic game. The intensity was. It was the most intense. It was the highest quality round one game I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it was that good without doubt. For me, everything you would have wanted. I was so impressed with Leigh. They really surprised me. They've done it again. The recruitment based on that. You know, Ethan O'Neill played in the back row. No, let's be honest. If we're fair, nobody knew who Ethan O'Neill was, and he was terrific. Yeah. Absolutely fine. They've plucked him out of nowhere. Tua Tavaka did well. Armstrong, once those grounds adding up, is going to be a demon out the back.
He loves it. I think I said last week.
Here we go. Told you looking at him, you were going to be man of steel.
Listen, I don't think I'm showing that I've got any knowledge that nobody else had. By saying David Armstrong looks a player, I think everybody knows he's a player. But what I was saying last week was I could tell from that Super League launch and seeing him around that he looked really up for it, and he looked like a player who's coming over here to make a mark, and we saw that. I mean, he looked terrific, didn't he?
Tessie New was the other one. Tessie New was great. I saw him, and I mean, I'm not one to speak. I thought, you look a bit heavy.
For an outside back.
For an outside back, but my word, he got through some work.
Yeah, he did.
He had a great game. He's going to be an handful.
And what I loved was we followed that up on Thursday with another golden point. And it was two games on the Friday. One of them was a little bit more wider, which was a big surprise for most people. Let's not mention who tipped Hull FC to win at Catalans. Let's get into it. Let's go straight to that second golden point. Hull KR were not brilliant, right? But Castleford still deserve a lot of credit because the way they bounced back from a really poor pre-season, the issues that they've got within the squad and that they've had, building up, they were terrific. They really pushed Rovers, and we'll be absolutely gutted that they left Craven Park with nothing. But another really good game, not the same sort of intensity. There was a bit more of the errors on the show, but still a really exciting game for the fans watching.
It was, and it was more that Castleford played really well than Hull KR were really poor.
Yeah.
Hull KR weren't at the best. But Castleford were fantastic. I just did not see that performance in them. I really didn't, based on what I'd seen before. But it was a bit of a blueprint of, I think, how Castleford will play and what they need to do if they're going to compete. They completed tremendously high, which they have to do because the negative of the performance was they've still got nothing coming out of backfield. The outside backs aren't making enough meters.
They were around 100% for the first
they were 30 out of 30. They were 30 out of 30 sets.
Was he?
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's
unbelievable.
Sensational.
Unbelievable. They made a few errors near the second half. So they have to complete high because and then get errors out of the other team. But they did that because they were much, much better defensively, tougher, forced errors out of Hull KR, got penalties out of them. Once they're in position, I said this on the podcast last week, once they're in good ball, they can play. They've got some very tidy players.
Yep.
The issue for Castleford is getting in those positions. But if they complete high, they've got a chance. Great performance by them. A lot of players drastically improved. They still need to recruit, don't get me wrong. And as for Hull KR, look, it's one of them. They got the 2 points.
It's the hallmarks of a good side, is it not, Josh? When they weren't great, Michael Lewis steals all the headlines. He even admitted himself it wasn't a great performance. But it's round one. Nobody needs to be great. What you need is to get points on the board, and Hull Kingston Rovers have done that.
Yeah, nobody's going to be perfect in round one, are they? And just going on Castleford, I mean, they've had a rough off season, and we spoke about them a lot, didn't we, last week, and how we all predicted them to be in for a rough season. If they can perform to that level every week, I think they'll shock all of us. I think maybe at the end of the year, some of the comments that I made and some of the predictions made, we might be thinking how wrong we were if Danny Maguire can get him firing like that every week. And I think, did you write a piece as well that the fullback Rooney is a superstar on their hands, said Maguire, and then when Milnes is back, there's competition. So we were talking about that's their squad. They've got a couple of injuries, but now we're talking squad competition because these youngsters are stepping up.
Yeah,
when the youngsters coming through who are the kids of players that I covered when I was your age,
like Joe Westerman,
is making me feel. Yeah,
smells it with Jean when Joe Westerman and Liam Watts were teenagers.
This is true.
Now they're not like the oldest place in Super League.
This is true. Let's move on. You said about making your predictions, look silly. So Catalan being the team to watch this season. No, listen, it's only round one. But,
it is only round one,
but to be fair, the bits I saw of it, they threw a lot at Hull FC. Hull FC were brilliant defensively. I mean, absolutely on it, and then came up with the goods to find the ways of getting over the line as well. I think FC are the ones that deserve credit rather than us sitting here and saying Catalan were bad. I think they were terrific.
Absolutely, yeah. With Catalans and last week, they will take time to click. And we were just saying then it's round one, they'll take time. But yeah, every credit to Hull FC. As you mentioned, I think only one man predicted that, but I think we'll just go talk about the next game now.
I think the other thing you did say though is if they don't have Tompkins and Carey playing a lot of games, Tompkins out for 4 to 6 weeks already. Yeah. There's concerns there as well, and with his age, the time it takes to come back, get up to speed.
Yeah, let me just give a bit of praise to LFC because I've been getting hounded for not commenting on them. Because I wasn't there and didn't watch it. Yes. I have watched it now. Go on.
No, I was just going to say it's a shame Dan's not here because obviously he was there in person.
Dan, I cannot believe Dan isn't here. He was offered a lift,
chance to come on the lift,
and I thought it'd be all over.
It could have been a 60-minute special on Hull
I
and the
thought,
changes.
I cannot believe he's not got out of bed to be here. But anyway, I've watched it, and defensively, as you said, they were awesome. They're really, really good. It was everything that Hull FC haven't been: tough, gritty, resilient. We just haven't seen that, have we? Any sort of pressure, they've caved in, and they did
funny,
it.
Me and you went to a couple of pre-season dinners and were doing the rounds, and just anything, as you'll know, Josh, when you haven't got that regular pie intake, you need to go to these pre-season dinners from the clubs to get a feed in.
Well, you won't go to All FC. Oh, sorry.
No, we did go to All FC,
yeah.
And Brian Carney was there, and Brian was interviewing John Cartwright on the stage, and he said, "What does John Cartwright team look like?" That felt like the answer in many ways in Catalan. It was tough. It was resilient. They properly gritted the teeth and bit down and got into the fight of it, which they just haven't done for the last couple of years.
It was just a general togetherness, like just celebrating the little wins and things like that. I just thought the body language of the players was fantastic. They just looked like a team, and that's what Hull FC haven't been for a long time. They looked like a team. We said it last week. They're on the right track.
And we also said last week, Wakefield are going to win a fair share of games this season. They're not going to be any whipping boys by any stretch. Look out for them. They've got a good side there, and they've made some good additions. And then they go and beat Leeds Rhinos. You were there, who you've tipped for third. I mean, listen, there's 26 more rounds to go. Leeds Rhinos have still got every chance of finishing third. But putting the focus on Wakefield, great result for them to start the season with. Were they full value for it? I didn't see this game. How good were Wakefield?
Definitely deserved to win. Yeah. Definitely deserved to win. The late score that Lasoni scored with a minute left flattered Leeds. It was more like a 14-8 game rather than 14-12 or 14-6 it was. Wakefield were slick with the ball, cut Leeds to ribbons in the first half when they moved it to the edges. Jowett and Truman and Lino were terrific. Defensively, I thought they'd struggle because they've got a lot of players out at the minute as well in the pack, and I just thought they'd get rolled, but they stepped up. Jay Pitts was tremendous. McMeekan was awesome.
Jay Pitts just keeps rolling the years back.
Well, I was speaking to Mike McMeekan after the game, and I said something on the lines of he's no right to be playing like he is and playing 80 minutes at the age he's at, and he said, I'm going to go tell him that you've just said that. I'm like, brilliant, thanks, Mike.
But he is a player that in his 30s has played a lot, for me, has played a lot better than he did in his 20s.
Yeah, for sure. He played 80 minutes.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
They were so good through the middle. I was really impressed with Caleb Hamlin ULA. One of my trepidations with Wakefield is that a lot of players that haven't played at this level before stepping up, like Caleb and a few others. He was great. He really held his own with Oledzki, who's been in terrific form in the off season. And you've got to remember, Wakefield, they did it with Ollie Russell and Thomas Doyle on the bench, who essentially a halfback and a hooker. They were really light, and they soaked up everything. Leeds, I mean, we'll get on to Leeds in a minute, but...
Well, just get on to Leeds now, and I'll come to you in a sec. Josh, did Oledzki get injured in the game?
HIA, yeah. He just a glancing one, but he was gone. He couldn't get on his feet, and then... Yeah, so he'll miss this week. Leeds, I've watched every game now this week, and they were the biggest disappointment for me. I just expected so much more. The game was all right until they conceded, and once they conceded, they just fell apart. They conceded 3 tries in 10 minutes. There was one ruled out in that as well. And this, we spoke a lot about Leeds, better line speed, more physicality, a clear plan in attack rather than launching the ball everywhere.
Which is what we saw when they played Wigan in Ash Hanley's testimonial, which is why we thought, well, what we've said about them.
But the fundamental flaw for me of Leeds over the last couple of years is that when they're on the deck and when a team's got their foot on their throat, Leeds are incapable of turning it around. They haven't got those players who are going to take the team by the scruff of the neck and drag them out of it. And that proved to be the case again in this one. Once they conceded a try, they were a mess and no one got hold of it. Defensively and in attack, they were utterly rudderless. They were just doing their own thing. I've not seen Brodie Croft have as poor a game as that. For all he's supposed to see the ship, and, well, the way that they played was proof of that he was poor. They were just all over the shop in attack. Nobody were on the same page.
Admittedly, I've only watched the highlights from that game, but Wakefield, from what I saw in attack, looked the opposite. I mean, some of the tries they scored for a round one game was superb. Some free flowing. I think one of them they scored from maybe 50 inside their own half. It was just great.
They were awesome.
Highlights.
They were awesome. Darryl Powell teams have always played with good shape, haven't they? Yeah. And you think of that Cast team in 2017. And they've got the players. It was fantastic to see Jake Truman play so well. We know how bad he's at it with injuries, and he just looked just quality. And he is a quality player. He just needs to stay on the field. Really, really good day for Wakefield. Not a good day for Leeds.
Right, which brings me, I think if I've got my math right, the last game, which was Huddersfield Giants against Warrington, which you were there again. It kind of felt a little bit that after all the excitement and everything else that was going on earlier in the round, that this one, I don't know, a little bit of after the Lord may show, because it was a Huddersfield side missing loads of players and Warrington were not great. It kind of felt like, it was what it was. It was Huddersfield will take a bit out of it, the loss, but encouraging performance. Warrington, they'll take the 2 points and they'll just try and be better this week. Yeah,
start on Huddersfield. It was a reasonable performance from Huddersfield, given the circumstances. Particularly, they played well. They matched Warrington for large parts. Burgess was really good in his first stint. I have a theory that I'm sure will get brought up on the show. I always worry when clubs sign NRL forwards who have a lot of experience, because I think as a general rule, they don't do very well over here for whatever reason. So Tom Burgess flags up on my radar. I'm not sure about that one. He was really good. He was very, very good.
Did you tell him that when you viewed him at Manchester 2 weeks ago?
Absolutely not.
Did you tell Jared Hargreaves that when you were walking on Amsterdam with him?
Absolutely not.
No.
All right.
Even better was Ollie Wilson. he was very, very. I think Ollie Wilson really goes under the radar. The problem for Huddersfield was once those two went off and once Zach Wolford went off, they just struggled to maintain that through the middle. Warrington found it easier to make meters and they got camped a little bit. But all that said, if they hadn't have conceded the 20-40 kick that Danny Walker kicked, Gagai could have taken it and just decided to let it go, not thinking of the rules. Warrington went and scored from that. Well, they were 2 behind at that point. They were on top of the game at that period. And that was a very, very key moment. Yeah, they did all right. They did okay. They're not. They were better than I thought they would be. Warrington, Sam said it, weren't as good as he thought they would be. George Williams, the piece on All Out Rugby League later today, he basically said he can't remember having as bad a game as he did. But they won. They won, and round one you are looking for performances, aren't you? So you're in the swing of things. But if you don't get the performance, you want the result. They got the result. Very much you summed it up. They got the 2 points. They leave. They move on.
Lots to look forward to this week. We'll be coming back with another bonus pod where we'll do our predictions for the week. But we got the Luke Littler Stadium to look forward to. Hull FC at home against Wigan Warriors. Wigan looking for that first win.
It suddenly becomes game of the round, that almost, doesn't it?
It looks like a cracker, that.
Yeah.
That looks like a cracker. Some really exciting games to look forward to. We're inching closer to Vegas. It just feels like address the Salford situation, hopefully get that box ticked so Salford can play a full strength squad, put my teeth in this week. Try and come up with a resolution with what's going on with the RFL, with Simon Johnson. We get that done. Feel like we're in a really, really good place at the minute with Rugby League. Nailed it.
I think the big takeaway from me from this week is the fact that what we've probably seen, and it's early days, let's not talk up or talk down anyone, but it's probably a more competitive competition than we thought. The teams tipped to be lower down have showed up really, really well. Like everyone's tipping Wakefield, Hull FC, Castleford and Huddersfield to be the bottom 4 in whatever order. They've all played really well.
Yeah.
And that's a really good sign for Super League because it means that every game is going to have some unpredictability.
Well, the strength of your competition is the quality of the teams at the bottom rather than the quality of the teams at the top, is it not?
Yeah, because you want those.
There's no point Wigan being brilliant and all conquering if the rest of the competition are just rubbish.
Yeah, because you want those competitive matches, don't you? You don't want an 82-0, I don't know, but you don't want a 40-0 or 50-0 one-sided affair. You want these predicted, what we predicted, the bottom 4s to be competing with the top 4. Because coming the end of the year, if we are wrong about our predictions, then great. If Wakefield make that top 6 somehow, then great. It's a story. Wakefield's return to the top to Super League. And that's the story as well Thursday back at Bellevue under a revamped Hull KR there. But yeah, the more competitive we see in Super League, the best. And Rugby League's back. Let's focus on what's on the field and the positives of it all.
Rugby League's back. The lads are full of pies, so they've got a smile on their face.
And I've been breathing in all show.
Once again, Matt's got his girdle on, and that's doing the business. We're here at the Icebox. We're having loads of fun recording this. So thanks for being with us. Hopefully you really enjoyed that opening weekend. Hopefully there's another cracking weekend to come. We've certainly got some cracking content to come. From myself and Josh, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you soon.
Do I get paid 100 grand every time I say this line like Michael Buffer does?
Yes.
It's more than 100 grand. It's $1 million.
It goes into my bank account, not yours.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us and enjoy your rugby league. Take care.